Well, all right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and it is lovely to have you here on the Friday Masterclass, or specifically the audio Masterclass today. And it's going to be based around a new little series that I'm going to start, that I'm starting, called What Makes Audition Great? And today's focus is going to be on editing, specifically just editing audio. Of course, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. You can edit in Premiere with audio, you can edit audio in After Effects. There's lots of other free applications out there that allow you to edit audio. But if you're serious about making your audio truly awesome, and actually, if you're new to this, if you've never really done a lot of this, or you've kind of had mixed success editing audio files or WAV files and even Premiere Rush or Premiere or elsewhere, Audition is an awesome tool to edit and to really understand how editing works, and it allows you to do things quickly, super efficiently, visually. So again, even if you're not sort of super familiar with all of the technical terms behind it all, it gives you a bit of a leg up on how to do things. And sonically, what you produce out of Audition is going to be, well, it's going to be transparent. If you follow some of the steps I'm going to show you today, your original will sound as good as your finalized master after you've converted bit depth, after you've converted sample rate and done all of your processing. It should be absolutely transparent and sound just like the original. And that really speaks to the incredible engineering and the algorithms that we have inside of the application. So as always, we're coming to you live on Behance, on YouTube and Twitter Periscope, so thank you so much for joining. I was watching my buddy Terry earlier, and I want to remind everyone, because I know we've got people on Twitter and on YouTube, that I will be following the chat over at b.net/Adobe Live. So I can give a couple shout outs now, but if I don't see your comments or your questions, it's because I'm really just focusing on the Adobe Live chat. So b.net/Adobe Live. That is where you want to be. Having said that, let's give a couple shout outs. So I can see we've got Valdair in here. What's up? Umacorn, Cal, and Wade, and Richard Adams, Hugh O'Connor, make Audition great again. Sydney Newberry, what's up? Startup, Sanatana, hello, how are you doing? Ferry, great to see you. Quinn Stevenson, Christine, all right, nice audience today. I can see you've got Dep Tribo, nice to see you. Aunt Brad over there. Andrea Chiesa a Progetto Imagina, hello. Future Engineer, what's up? Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And lots of people, once again, on the Periscope, because it's going away. So Periscope will cease to exist as of the 31st of March. Hassan Mohammed Jama, hello. Desiree, hello. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and switch over to my screen here. By the way, if you notice, there was some music playing in the background, which I never do. I mentioned earlier last week that I've been doing a lot of going back through my archives. Oh, and I just realized I didn't kind of fix my screen here. Give me a second. I've been going back through a lot of my old archives and rediscovered a whole bunch of old digital masters that I had. Among them, this one in particular, a completely unreleased album that I did with my oft collaborator, Fred Fung, from 1997. I'll just bring the volume up a little bit so you can kind of hear this. And this whole record, it never came out. And I had completely forgotten about it. And you think, how would you forget a whole... Because I remember he flew out to my studio in Nashville at the time. We did the recording there. Just totally spaced on it, and we never put this one out. So take a quick listen to this, just real quickly, little background. Different, right? There's no effects, or again, this is just the original mix. Okay. Umacorn, I hear Thai instruments. Actually, yes, you hear all kinds. So there's Thai, Chinese, gamelan instrumentation, and this whole record all played live, as always. No MIDI, no sequencing. no looping at that time, 1997. Although we could have done it with samplers, but there isn't any on this record. Is it's not all instrumental. Fred actually is doing sort of his pseudo Hong Kong rap style over top of some of this in English, but he's playing a whole series of different mallet percussion. Again, I don't remember all the names of these. I did at one point in time, but he was very into gamelan at that time. So a lot of music from Balinese style gamelan, and it's just super cool. And real drums and real bass, and I'm playing the drums on some of these, and the Rickenbacker, and there's flute, and it's really cool stuff. Anyway, we're gonna come back to this. We'll revisit it, but let's go ahead and start. And we're gonna start with something that I recorded just a couple of days ago. Oh, Elizabeth Mock. Well, thank you very much. Okay, well, yes, wait, I'll put some of the vocals on. Again, he's not singing. He's kind of speak style rapping. Couple of controversial ones in there, and it's funny. Anyone in the US may remember this. I, again, totally forgotten about this. He had a song called Don't Vote for Bob Dole. Not to get political, but... So maybe this was actually recorded in the summer of 96, because 97, we would have had... election would have been over. So yeah, maybe I don't remember. God, time, you know. But yeah, don't vote for Bob Dole. Pretty funny. Okay, so we're going to start with editing, basic cutting. This is what makes Audition awesome. I don't care what other app you use. They're all fairly good today. But what makes Audition really good is that, one, it's fairly easy. It's easy to use visuals to identify how to edit. And once you kind of understand how things look, you'll see, after I show you this now, you're gonna start to see what attack transients look like, what the beginning of a phrase looks like, what the beginning of a beat looks like, and you'll just be able to visually hone in on things, make selections, and edit clean cuts without any pops or clicks or digital artifacts. You're gonna do it super fast, okay? And I wanted to start by saying that if you're trying to get sort of good at digital audio editing, the best way to do that is to edit drums, drum tracks. Now these can be real drums. Even better, if you're, for accuracy, use pre-recorded, drum machine or synthesized drums or whatever. We also have a whole offering of real drums and digital drums that I recorded, which you can find here under the help menu. Download sound effects and more in a collection called Loopology, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds. Most of them are loops, but again, you could splice a bunch of them together, and then drumming is just a really great way to understand how to digitally edit, and you'll see why in just a second here. So this is a little something that I recorded the other day, some drum grooves. I was just kind of feeling it, and what we're trying to do is find a section that we can ultimately loop and maybe build upon. So let's take a quick listen to this, some of the groove going on here. Got a good crash right there. I like that one. This one's a little more subtle. Okay, so if we wanted to say take that one bar phrase and loop it, okay? First thing, of course, we're going to try and identify where that kick drum is. Can see that right here, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm simply gonna take my time selection tool, and we're gonna come and we're gonna talk about some of the other tools that we have in here, all right? And I'm simply going to select from that beat until the next kick drum beat, okay? And just to kind of show you again, let's just play this. 2, 3, 4, 1, okay? So we're gonna select from here to here. Now, it's really important to note that I'm using the visual here. I'm paying attention to what I'm seeing on screen in terms of the beginning of that first kick and the end of that last hit before the next kick, all right? So without even, I just selected that, right? Let's go ahead and play it and listen to it. It's a perfect loop. There's no click, there's no glitch, there's no pop. It's perfect. It's seamless, okay? Now, is that because I'm an amazing editor? Well, yes, of course. But it's also because Audition's visual representation of the waveform on screen is so accurate that I can really see where the beginning of those attacks occur. The problem that most people run into with a lot of other editing apps is that when you're making a selection, all right, I'm zoomed in here, let me zoom back out. You might select like, you're not quite at the beginning of the hit, right? So again, on screen, you might have something like this where part of that attack transient, you can see it's bleeding over to the left. Everybody see that here? See this little blue bit? That's the drum. So if that's not selected, right? Let's listen to what that sounds like now when we transition. Here there's now this digital click. Sounds harsh, right? And we can also see, because I moved the end here, now we're actually getting a little bit of the attack from the previous one. So we need to move that, all right? So again, we're just gonna look visually here, eyeball it, make sure we're getting all of that blue. And you might say, well, is there some other technical way to describe this? Yes, we could talk about zero crossings. That doesn't matter. We can see that we have the entire attack selected here. So now when I play this back, okay? Simple, easy, visual. Now, I played this without a click. I just played this in my personal metronomic human time, okay? So I'm gonna show you something cool here. Let me go ahead. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this to a new file. We'll come back to this in a second. Let's go back to the drums here, just to kind of show you again how these visuals work. So if I were trying to find another section of this that was also really good, I can take the selection that I have and I can hover over like sections. Now, again, I played this myself, human, without a click, just my own human metronome. So when I take the exact same selection, what you're gonna see right here is that first hit lines up perfectly, but a little bit of the previous one is kind of rolling in. Now I could change the selection, but if I'm trying to say lay these two pieces together, like in a timeline, so that they're in exact time, that's gonna have that little digital pop in there. Let's take a listen. Little less noticeable, but it's still there slightly. So again, I could make that change. I could simply adjust this. And now it's perfect, okay? But again, the idea is that if I were trying to find something that was the exact duration as the previous one, I've now changed that duration slightly. So I'm gonna take this, let's move this over to the next section here. And let's see. Okay, so this one is really off right here. That one was actually pretty close. This one, not quite so close. All right. So let's move back over to here. Like this. All right. Right in there. Let's take a listen to this. Now, again, as I was scrolling, I kind of visually eyeballed this super fast. So here's another really cool thing about Audition. If you look, you're going to see that there's this little minuscule blue vertical line right there. That's the very beginning. It's like the beater of the kick drum. I didn't select that attack, but we didn't hear any weird click. I inadvertently selected that same little beater section of the next waveform. So that's why there's no difference. Now I could slide the whole thing over by X number of samples just so that we don't have that little piece playing over at the front there. But again, that's kind of showing you the visual accuracy of this display. It's pretty nuts, okay? Now this is just like the standalone drums. Let me, I had another example I wanted to pull in here. Let's go into this one right here. Okay, something like this. All right, let's take a listen to this. So this is another, again, this was another unreleased track of ours that we did at Berkeley in 1994. Take a listen to this. Oh, actually, no, not this section. Let me go to the beginning. Let's take a listen to this. Okay, again, human played. These are all real percussion instruments. No metronome, but super tight, and I might want a decent loop out of this. Okay, I think this is going to be our groove right here. So again, I'm just looking visually, okay? I'm not even zoomed in particularly close. But you can see I've kind of got everything. Now, sometimes you can end up with a little click or two there. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, little bit of a hit right there. And as I zoom in, I can see, look at that. Okay. Now, I did that on purpose to showcase to you that you probably want to zoom in a little bit more so you can see those transient details. But now you can very easily. So again, I'm just going to move my marker like this. Okay. Make sure we get the beginning of that attack, just like that. Perfect. Okay? Super, super easy, all right? Doesn't matter what you're doing. Use the visuals to your benefit. There's some of that gamelan umacorn. Okay? Now, one other thing that I wanted to show you with regard to, again, editing accuracy and some of the things that you can do. Now, I cut out a piece of those drums, as you may recall. Now, this was our second selection of groove right here. So I'm going to copy this groove, and I'm going to go to the little piece that we copied to a new file. Oh, let me make this a little louder. Let's put on a little. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this groove and I'm going to reverse it. All right. And I'm going to go up to the edit menu and I'm going to choose Mix Paste. So when you're cutting and pasting musical, oops, not delete. When you're cutting and pasting musical elements in here, Mix Paste is going to give you some creative options in how you do one of 4 different things. You can either insert, you can overlap, mixing 2 things together, and it tells you that. You can overwrite. So a lot of times, like I might, if I were assembling a live drum track, and then overdubbing over top of it, I might have a piece that I like later that I want to put earlier. So I might highlight a section and completely overwrite that section, but maintain the same space of time using overwrite, or I can modulate, and actually modulate 2 audio signals together. That gets really bizarre and strange when you're doing, especially if you're doing things with like adaptive synthesis. You can create some really bizarre results by modulating 2 copied signals together, all right? In this case, I'm going to overlap the straight ahead groove over top of the reversed groove. And remember, these were exactly in time, so they should sort of sound like a composite beat, but one part of it's going backwards and the other part's going forwards. And of course, it's 2 different performances. Let's take a listen. Let's go ahead and click OK. It pastes it in there. Again, you can see the duration is exactly the same. And let's take a listen. Kind of getting da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. All right? Just interesting. Brilliant? Nah, not necessarily. But you get the idea, okay? Mix, paste, overwrite, modulate. If I do modulation on these drums, it's not going to do a heck of a lot. We really need a synthesis example there. But it's just sort of revealing these different kinds of things that you can do. Also want to point out that, again, reverse, invert. So again, if you've got a stereo performance, this is particularly useful. And by the way, I should point out too, you notice that I have the waveform and the spectral display on screen. A lot of people don't know this. There's this little divider that lives in the center of the Audition interface. So you can always very easily swap between the spectral frequency display and the waveform display. Now you also have buttons to do that up here, so I can switch between, not spectral, spectral pitch, waveform, spectral display, spectral pitch. This one is a little less useful. Better for visual, but it's okay. So you can do this as well. I don't always tend to have these kind of not side by side, but on top of one another. But there are occasions where I'll edit like this, okay? All right, check out some of our questions in here, all right? Welcome to the jungle, all right. All right. Learn to listen with your eyes and see with your ears, absolutely. Yes, Ferry, some of that, again, I mentioned, it's a combination of Balinese and Javanese. So excellent ear right there, my friend. That was some of the stuff that Fred was kind of developing when we were in college together. That was super cool. Okay, so that's a little bit of just standard destructive editing. Now, I'm going to go into some fixes around editing, but before we do that, just to reiterate here, okay, this is destructive editing. So again, when we're taking a look at making changes here, all right, like let's say, let's take a listen to something like this. Okay, and let's say that I don't like these first two hits of that groove. The kick drums are a little too hot. Now what's actually nice is you can see that I gradually decreased the amplitude of the kick over those three hits, but I don't like those first two. So if I hit delete, I'm actually completely deleting that part of the performance. Now, because I kept going, this was the edit point right here. There's no click, there's no pop, it's just solid. Okay? But that's destructive. We have taken that away. And if I save this, that little bit of the performance is gone. All right? Now, a lot of people say, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you always do things non-destructively? Well, when you're doing sort of final editing, particularly in mastering, particularly if you're doing like cleanup and things like that, there's two things that I implement. One, save variations. Audio files are small. Yes, it becomes a management thing, but that's on you. Audio files are small, so if you want to keep your original intact, which these days I do because drive space is, you know, again, thinking about the new Sony camera, the A1 8K video, yeah, you know, your 192 kilohertz 32-bit float audio file pales in comparison, all right? And no one records at 192K anyway. But audio files are small, so you can always save as and make an alternate with your edits. The other thing, though, is that you know, I like destructive editing. A lot of times, you know, it's really nice to commit to a change and just do it. It depends what it is. Yes, if it's a one-of-a-kind take that you'll never get again, make a duplicate, right? But destructive editing can be very effective, especially if you just know, like, I'm not going to need that. I don't want that. It's bad. Get rid of it. This is something that Terry White taught me or schooled me on with regard to selecting photos, you know. You take 450 frames and, you know, now you're making your selects. And you're like, well, that one, I like the pose, but it's kind of blurry. But you keep it because you're like, there's something about it. It's blurry. Get rid of it. I mean, do what you want. But in those times, right, I know we've all been there. You're like, oh, I've done it. I have kids. I'm like, oh, I love his face. He's completely motion blurred, but look at his little, get out of here. Right? If it's blurry, it's, you know, my mom goes to see it. She can't see anyway. Now she thinks it's 10 times blurrier. Just ruined her whole day, all right? Destructive editing. If you want to do things non-destructively, that can all happen here in the multitrack, all right? Now, I'm going to focus on multitrack editing on another day. Today, I'm really focusing on the waveform view. But here, we can do all the same things, but everything is non-destructive. So if I were to come in here, this is the Bob Dole song, by the way. love the sound of these drums. This was done in my, I had a studio in Antioch, Tennessee, and the drum room was, we used to call it the metal room. It was actually like a converted garage off the studio that had all this metal, like HVAC, not, why can't I think of what the word is? Not tunnels, what? Nah. It was all this metal in the room. So it had this very bright, reflective quality to it, and oh, it was so awesome. It gives me chills listening to stuff in here. I remember every mic that I used and this was DW. I don't typically play DW drums, but these are really nice. Okay, so again, if I wanted to cut this, all right, we have this concept in Multitrack of split, all right, or I can split everything that's under the playhead. So if I split that, now what it allows me to do is take this little section and move it around on its own. I could take this by itself, save it out to a new file. I could duplicate it, you know, and have, you know, sort of back-to-back, side-by-side versions of that just playing together, something like this. Oh, then I overwrote it myself. That was smart. Let's drag it over there. Sorry about that. Anyway, you get the idea. You also have fade handles up here. Let me turn off my time stretching. You have these in the edit view too, but this is if you want to apply little fades. Now the difference here is that in Multitrack you don't see the waveform adjusting visually because these are non-destructive fades, right? But this allows you to do, let's say that we wanted to crossfade these two clips together, right? Because there's still, remember, it's non-destructive, so there's still audio underneath of there. You can do that with a fade handle, all right? So I could take this clip here, and this clip here, I'm just dragging these together, and if I wanted to, say, adjust the beat and have it fade the beats together, it's going to sound bizarre. All right, and then you have your fade and then out curves, and you can adjust these non-destructively. This works great if you're editing like podcast, dialogue. Makes a lot of sense to do these sorts of things non-destructively because you're basically moving pieces around. The original is always still there. So even though I cut that section out, I could just drag this and like snap it to the end right there. And if I play this, it should play seamlessly. Let's take a listen. Yeah, okay, there's no click because you're literally just joining the exact previous sample to the next sample. So non-destructive, really easy, all right? And again, if we wanted to do those fade handles like a top and tail, fade in, fade out at the beginning of our audio, you have these fade handles in the waveform view as well. These allow you to visually see how that fade is affecting the waveform, right? So if you're doing a very long, slow fade, you know, you can really get an idea of what that's going to look like, the beginning and the end, okay? But again, once you apply that, let go, it's done. So the fade is, things are gradually gonna get quieter now, okay? You've made that change. If I don't undo that right away, I have changed the amplitude of that forever, right? I mean, you have a gazillion levels of undo, but if I don't, if I do 20 other things, I'll have to undo all those 20 things because I left it with adjusted amplitude, all right? So destructive editing is this editor view, the waveform view. Everything in Multitrack, non-destructive, all right? All right. Ducts. Yes, duct work. Thank you. Oh, God, why could I not think of, you know, brain. All right, lo-fi is the easiest way to learn Audition. Lo-fi is great for Audition too. Okay, all right, so let's move on now. And we're gonna go into healing and fixing things, all right? Now for this, I had to get specific. I've been doing a lot of vinyl transfer recently. Obviously, I can't play commercial things for more than about a second here without getting flagged. So this is a little piece from a piece of vinyl by The Ventures, super famous surf band, among other things. And I just transferred this, so this is the raw transfer. And what you're gonna hear in this little section here is that there's some pretty noticeable clicks from the vinyl, some pops. And this is after washing it, like wet cleaning it. So take a quick listen. And there's another one here. Okay. Easiest way to remove this. Now there's two ways that you can do this, all right? If you simply zoom in, and I'm just using my my magic, or is this the no, this is the magic mouse. Forget, the mighty mouse was the previous one with the wheel. So I'm just using my zoom gesture. By the way, this is another one of Audition's incredible strengths. Incredibly fast zooming, right? As accurate as that playback and editing was, our zoom is crazy fluid. I mean, when you talk about fluid UI, I mean, look at that. All right, all the way down to individual samples. These are individual samples right here. Okay. Now it used to be that you could redraw individual samples. We don't actually let you do that anymore at that level for good reason. There's other ways to do it, and it's actually a lot more destructive to the average person than you think it might be. So you can't do that anymore. You can still make changes at the sample level. You're just not drawing them, okay? But in this case, what you're going to do is you're going to zoom in to where you can very easily see that click, that pop from the vinyl, all right? And again, as you start to learn what audio looks like, you can see there's a very consistent pattern. It almost looks like rolling waves, all right? So visually, I mean, you can see it, right? Clack, right there, right? And then it goes back to normal. Now we could cut this out, but of course then we're eliminating a piece of the audio. And even though it's a very short duration, sometimes that works with vinyl, depending upon if it's like a pop or an actual skip. Sometimes it'll be inaudible. But what if we could just take it out and not adjust time at all? We can actually heal it, okay? So this is another one of Audition's strengths. Much like spot healing brush, we have healing in Audition. So this is the first way to do it. If you select the offensive click or pop, what you want to do is you want to make a fairly tight selection. Best practice for this to work really well is to make sure that you get the pop of the actual transient of the attack in the center, and then you want to try and get where the audio sort of restores back to normal, crossing that center line, also known as a zero crossing. So right in these sections here, it doesn't have to go all the way out, just like that. Now you could also do this super tight. It usually still works because it is in fact crossing the zero boundary right here too. I'm just going to extend this just a little bit, all right? Like that. Come up to our favorites menu and choose Auto Heal. And just like that, it's now going to look at all of the other audio. And if we zoom out and go ahead and play this back now. Here's the before. Here's the after. Gone. Visually. Okay? Now, a lot of people ask, don't you have like click pop effects and things? And under noise reduction, we do. We have, I think, 3 or 4 of them. You have the click pop eliminator. You have the automatic click remover. You have the sound remover. And then under diagnostics, you have the declicker, all right? You could have used any one of those for this particular instance. Some will be more effective than others. But visually identifying it, again, the strength of Audition as an editor, this works for all kinds of things, including offensive plosives. And this is what we're going to show you now. Now, I've shown this many, many times on stream. What I think is so significant about this is that while you can use effects and EQ to adjust plosives, you can also edit them destructively in the spectral view. So if you take a listen to this little thing right here, let me make this, just make this louder. Hold on. I'm gonna make this section louder just so you can hear it a little better. All right. And let's take a look. We're gonna go into our spectral display here. It's between Premiere's sequence and between Premiere. Oh, did I already take it out? Oh, son of a gun. Thank you. I'm going. Why am I not hearing any of the plosives? Okay, I'm putting them all back in. All right, here we go. So here was the original.
Files between Premiere's sequence and fix them directly in files between Premiere's sequence.
Okay. So, plosives, low frequency pops caused by a large burst of air that momentarily, essentially distorts your microphone capsule. This very commonly happens on condenser microphones. Even sometimes if you have a pop filter, that's what a pop filter attempts to eliminate or prevent, I should say. It can happen on dynamic microphones as well. The key is, how do we fix it? All right. So we're going to use the spectral frequency display in this case and rely on what we see visually. So over on the right, I need a V8 today. What you're seeing here on the right side, these are frequencies. Okay, so this is the spectrum of frequencies for this file, which was recorded at 48,000 hertz. Therefore, your top frequency is going to be 24K or 24,000 hertz, right? So this goes all the way up to 24,000, okay? We're focused, though, on this sort of this bottom 1,000, right? And plosives typically happen in the bass range, but really in the subsonic range. A good burst of air, you'll hear it, but you can visually see that it usually occurs below 50 hertz. And usually most of that energy, if it's a bad one, is around 40 and 30 hertz. So 60, 40, 20, looky there. And if you look to the adjacent bits of talking,
and you can seamlessly move your files between.
All right, there's nothing. Let me get my marquee tool. All right, we're going to use this one right now from Photoshop. There's nothing in that range at all. These are a couple more plosives right there, right? So you can very clearly see that there's a change, there's a difference right here and right here, and it even extends a little bit higher, okay? So that's what we're going to do to get rid of it, all right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate this little right there, and I'm just going to delete it, okay? And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to delete that. Maybe get rid of this. And that little tail right there. All right? And now, let's zoom back out and take a listen.
Between Premiere's sequence, between Premiere.
Okay, get a little bit of the Premiere.
Between Premiere.
Which is going to be right about there. So we can isolate that.
Between Premiere's sequence and fix them. Between Premiere's sequence. Between Premiere's sequence.
Okay. And we've got a little residual sort of going on right there. So I'm just going to get rid of some of that. By the way, I'm deleting. We can also de-amplify.
Between Premiere's sequence. Between Premiere's sequence. Between Premiere's sequence.
All right. And if I open the original. Oh, I can't because this is, let me save this as. All right, let's see if I could open that original again. All right.
Between Premiere, between Premiere, between Premiere, between Premiere.
All right, and here's the one we just fixed.
Between Premieres, between Premiere, between Premieres.
Plosive gone, okay? All right. So that's using the spectral display to visually identify and eliminate or process or affect, which is the next thing we're going to do. All right. So let's go into yet another classic of mine. I've played this maybe once or twice before. Again, I found the master mix of this. So this was, I had to rescore a soundtrack to a scene from the original Dirty Harry film in 1971 as part of a project on 8-track 1-inch tape. So this is that master coming off of DAT. And two things that I wanted to do here. Well, first of all, this is from the videotape master, all right? We used to synchronize back to videotape. there was no digital video at that time, so well, there were laser discs. You couldn't produce your own. So we would transfer things to 3/4 inch UMAT tape, synchronize to that, and then export the whole thing to VHS. So this is from a VHS master. And as is often the case when you have VHS recordings, and also a lot of times when you're using outboard mixers, and if you have in the studio when you're recording, this can occur. There's lots of reasons. You sometimes get this 15 kilohertz carrier tone that you're seeing. Now, this could also be the sync tone from the linear time code. There's a lot of reasons why you might encounter in the past this kind of solid line running horizontally through your audio. Now, this is at 15.5K approximately, so many of you will not necessarily hear that, okay? Now, remember, color is amplitude, so even though it's a fairly limited range, you can see it's actually more accurately, it's approximately like 15.75 kilohertz. If I play this for you, all right, now again, over the stream, I mean, I don't think we're really producing, certainly we're not producing uncompressed 16 kilohertz audio signals, so I don't know if you're hearing that. I could amplify it, but my point is that if you look at the level meters, minus 42, minus 36, there's quite a bit of signal in there. So we could, in theory, take that out. So again, visually, like if I were trying to do that with this, I can't see anything, right? Now you might say, well, couldn't you use other types of noise reduction and things like that? Well, yes, you can. They're going to be a bit more destructive. I just want to eliminate that frequency. Now something like this, because I'm guaranteeing this is, yeah, I can see by the divisions, this does actually look like a sync tone as well. This is going to be a little more challenging. So to do that, I'm going to try and find a section, a nice clean repetitive section. All right, like that. And I'm going to capture a noise print, go into noise reduction, select everything. I'm going to do 100% reduction with no spectral decay. Click apply, right? And it gets a good portion of it out. There's still quite a bit in there. So let's take another sample from another section. All right. Sometimes you have to do this a couple of times. Let's go into noise reduction, select all. Let's do a little more reduction this time. All right. Boom. And it's gone, all right? Now you might say, well, didn't it leave a bit of a hole? It did. There's some. Now again, if we zoom in real close, you'll see that there's still material there, okay? It's not complete silence. So much like the way that healing works, this is kind of doing a similar thing, all right? You can see there's still program material there. But because we're literally talking about between 15.75 and 15.8K, all right? Your ear, your brain will never perceive that as gone, all right? Now, if that were between 15 and 16K and we took it out, yes, that you would hear. Not this, okay? We're not going to hear a 50 hertz difference at literally the top end of most people's listening capability, especially if you're older. If you're younger, but even still, you're not going to hear it missing, all right? So you can see now it's visually gone. Now, again, you're not going to hear that over the stream. We're not going to bother playing that. What I wanted to show you, though, is how you can also use the spectral display to edit post fixes and do post processing. So there's a section here before the music transitions. Okay, right here, where I want to add some delay. The piano got cut off. I must have dropped the faders real quick when I was mixing it. So take a quick listen to this. All right, so I want to add a little da, 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 something like that, okay? So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select primarily just the piano. Okay. I'm going to come over to our analog delay. Let's take a listen to this with some delay. So now I'm applying only that delay effect to those selected frequencies. Go ahead and click apply on this. Let's go back and listen to the whole thing. By the way, this has all the Foley and everything in it, so that's why you're hearing this is a chase scene, okay? But you can see now it's totally seamless. Like now it just has this beautiful delay. Right? Wonderful, okay? What about minimizing certain things? Okay, let's go back to this one here. So in this song, there's a little section that I've highlighted here of this opium intro where the flute gets a little overmodulated. Flute's a little harsh, all right? So now, again, I could select just the primary fundamentals of the flute. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit higher, get some of those higher fundamentals, and one just below. Little bit of the vocal in there, that's okay. And I'm simply going to drop this 4 decibels. Okay, so I've just dropped the overall amplitude of just the flutes in that little section, just to kind of even things out. So now if we wind it back and take a listen. I think, I can't really quite hear the difference. Here's the before. That flute is so loud, right? Let's redo the amplify. And you might think, well, why does that work? Well, because if we take a look here, and here, and here, those are all harmonics of the flute that we didn't touch. So what we did was I looked at the amplitude of those, again, 2K, 1500 hertz, those sort of mid-range fundamentals of the flute, and just softened those. What? Meh. Now, is Audition the only editor that can do this? No. No, I think most now have some kind of spectral display. Do the others edit as easily and accurately? Not as easily and accurately? Maybe. Give or take. I've never seen one that was like, oh, that's perfect. That's identical. They're pretty good. You know, your mileage may vary too. So I'm not going to say this is the best one. What does that even mean? It's pretty darn superior though. All right. And it'll do the trick. Okay. Yeah, before the amplify, it's like poking my ears. Exactly, Fairy. Okay. All right. Last thing. Yes. Okay. So for my last 6 minutes, we're going to talk about something that is what am I trying to say? Something that is, again, fundamental to why Audition really rocks, and that is conversion and dithering and noise shaping. What are those things? Well, again, in the audio world, we are constantly it's not unlike photography. You record at higher bit depth, higher bit depth, so it's like shooting RAW, right? You don't want to shoot 8-bit JPEG, you're going to shoot 14-bit RAW, do your processing, and then when you send it to someone, to your web designer or whatever, go to the web or share, you save out as JPEG, which converts it down to 8-bit, right? Well, audio is the same concept. You're recording at higher bit depths, at a minimum today, 24-bit. We work natively in 32-bit float, but all of your devices, for the most part, and I mean external sound devices, support 24-bit recording. Some of your USB microphones do, some don't. And I've talked to this, I think I talked about this on one of the masterclasses around choosing the right mic for your voice. If you ever find that your voice recordings, despite the mic, they sound a little crunchy or a little digital. And if you're using older Blue series microphones, I don't know about all the new ones, but a lot of those sort of first and second generation USB mics were 16-bit only. And they weren't the best analog to digital converters. So 16-bit recording is not ideal. All right, it's really not, and you're going to miss a lot of the detail that exists. And again, it's just like photography. If you're not recording audio above 16-bit or processing above 16-bit, one, you're likely degrading your audio signal every time you process it, and also you're leaving a whole bunch of detail on the table. Okay, so when you're recording at 24 or 32-bit. When we deliver to Spotify or to YouTube or any sort of digital delivery that's not Blu-ray disc, okay, that actually supports 24-bit audio, you have to convert down to 16-bit. All right, now that's a very nerdy, long rant. It took me 3 minutes to say all that. Audition is truly, and there's even BBC white papers about this, it is the best and the most transparent when you're doing sample conversions. There, I said it. Challenge me. All right, it's brilliant. Doesn't matter if you do all your work in Pro Tools or Nuendo or Cubase or Reaper or wherever. If you're going to do your conversions, do them here. I've told you this on stream too. If you're going to be doing your final audio mix for a video that you're editing in Premiere, do it here. Don't rely on Premiere to do the audio conversion. I'm very serious. We can get into that another time. Do it here. It will sound better. You will thank me for it. We'll get into why later. That may change, but do it here. All right. So here I have some acoustic guitar with some printed reverb. It's 48K, 32-bit, okay? So we're gonna go up to convert sample type. Now, I've only got 2 minutes here, so real quickly, again, this is going to allow you to first and foremost change the sample rate. Now, sometimes you're doing a conversion, you're up converting, upscaling, up-resing. So maybe we'll go from 48 to 96 if we want. Or maybe, like I mentioned, 192 before. You can do that too. I don't remember, 44.1 if you were going to CD, if you're burning a CDR. I don't really recommend too many of these unless you're creating, like game audio and you really want it kind of lo-fi, all right? 22K and 11K, super lo-fi, but can be kind of nice, all right? So you have your sample rate conversion, your channel conversion, all right, if you so need to do, and then your bit depth conversion, okay? Now again, this is a 32-bit float native file. We want to go down to 16. Now what makes Audition so seamless and transparent is this right here, dithering, all right? Now you can read up on this. Hold on, what did I want to... Okay, let's make sure timing. Okay, dither, real quickly. What is dither? Dither is the ability to take all those extra bits that you have and basically, instead of throwing them away, which will happen if you do no dithering, which is bad, what happens is it's actually creating what's called quantization noise or quantization distortion, right? When you eliminate those bits, when you truncate those bits, that distortion can actually be heard, and it can be heard in things like fade outs or tails of reverb. Best way to describe it, going back to photography or video, when you export something, you were working in 16-bit maybe in Premiere, and you export something with a fade from black, and then when you watch it on YouTube, maybe you see some banding in the black as it's going from black to color, or it fade out. Again, sometimes you see that blocky banding. Well, that's what happens if you don't dither. You get this audio banding, this audio artifacting. I mentioned quantization artifacts. That's not the same quantization as MIDI, but it's the same concept where it's got to move them somewhere. So when you use dither, what it effectively does is it converts those bits into an imperceptible low-level noise that you can't hear, okay? So you always want to use dither. Now, you don't have to. And some engineers I've met are like, no, it's actually cool to have that dither noise. Okay. I also recommend the triangular flavor of dither. Now, noise shaping, I don't typically use. If I do use it, I choose between light and heavy. That, again, think of that as almost like an EQ for that noise. You can't even hear it anyway, but this is going to further refine that dither noise, right? And again, make it sort of imperceptible. You can't perceive it. So if we just process, I want to just show you this file with a little bit of noise shaping, all right? I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, you're not going to hear this over the stream, but I'm going to go back to our spectral display here and show you that if you take a look, you see this? You see there's this little bit of purple right there? That's the dither noise. Noise shaped brilliantly, okay? Let's convert the sample type back. Notice it's not there. So that was put there when we did noise shaping, okay? Now, like I said, I don't typically noise shape. You don't really need to. That's how good this algorithm is with triangular dither. So I'm going to click OK. It's not there, all right? They're both fairly imperceptible, but the truth is you don't really need it. That's how good it is. But friends, that is all the time we have. We're going to be doing more What Makes Audition Greats over the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much for watching. We've got the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge coming up next. So until then, have a good one. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.